Make sure we put oil back into the engine. The coil pack's back on in the same order that it came out. And I'll do a quick startup to see if it resolved the engine noise. Alright, today we got a 2009 Toyota Matrix. It has timing chain chatter, so I will be inspecting that today and most likely be replacing the part. So the customer has stated that as they drive this vehicle, when they come to a stop, it chatters louder and louder, and there is no noise once the vehicle is in motion. Let me fire it up so you can hear what it sounds like. I'm going to be inspecting the timing chain, the guides, the tensioner, oil pump chain, and the oil pump tensioner. So this process of getting to the timing chain is very tedious. The valve cover has to come off, the engine mount has to come off, the timing chain cover, alternator. This is the valve cover. These are the valve cover gaskets. Most likely every time you take these out, you will be replacing them. Taking out the battery. First thing we do. What I like to do is I always put the smaller bolts back where they are. That way I have less little bolts hanging around everywhere when it comes time for reinstall. That is the alternator. We'll be accessing the timing chain through the wheel well this way. We will be accessing it underneath here. The belt will have to be removed, the pulley will be removed, and this is the timing chain cover. All that will be removed for us to inspect it. For the drive belt, there are two bolts. I can access this one from down here, but the top one is in a pretty tight spot. The idler pulley comes out. That's it. This is the process of removing the oil pan bolts that bolt from the oil pan to the timing chain cover. These have to be removed in order to pick up the timing chain cover. What I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen the transmission bolt front and back so that I can push the engine up to get to the other bolt from the timing chain. I'm going to time the engine to top dead center so that this key over here is facing it. It'll be facing up at 12 o'clock. And to do that, I just put the harmonic balancer bolt back in. Turn the engine over, and if you come up here, you will see the timing marks here. It'll have to match the arrow here. And this mark right here just lines up with that little arrow right there. And that is time. Next we'll be removing the engine mount. this side here. In order to do that, I'll have to support the engine with the jack. Have it, there was a third bolt on the bottom and two on the top. So the belt tensioner bolt that you cannot get to unless the engine is raised up, that's where I dismounted the front and rear engine mounts, so that when I jack up the engine, this bolt here will clear the frame in order for me to get it out. This is your belt tensioner. Once that bolt was removed, this will come out. Before I take off the timing chain cover, I have to take out the timing chain tensioner. That way it releases tension on the chain, and when the cover comes off, nothing will pop up. This here is the belt tensioner. When you go to install it, you have to hold the pin or the lock, push it down and then lock it with the pin here, and then when you install it on the first crank of the car, it'll pop itself and it'll release the tensioner. I'm going to start removing some of the lower bolts from the timing chain cover while I'm down here. That way when I'm up top I don't have to come back down here. This is just the other half of the engine. Stud here is what was holding the belt tensioner. This will have to be removed in order to take the timing chain cover off. Okay, so now that all the bolts are off of the timing chain cover, you need a pry bar, and you will be prying the valve cover off. Just have to maneuver it out of the way. And there you have it, the timing chain cover. And we got to clean up all the old RTV glue here and apply new one when we reinstall. So here we have, someone had already put a new timing chain on, but they did not replace the oil pump chain and guide, and it looks like it has just too much free play here. So today we will be replacing this guide here, this chain here, and these gears here. All right, we got our oil pump tensioner, the chain. I have to remove the timing belt chain tensioners up here, the guides, I'm sorry, the guides. So I'll take those off. There's one guide. Two guides. There was another bolt up top that I had already taken out. The guide that I'll be changing out for the oil pump. And then after this, I will be installing new chains, new gears, which will be the next step. With the bolt off for the gears, this gear slides out. This one wiggles out, and it's got a key. You can see it. There's a notch right there. It only fits one way. Same thing with this up here. It's got a notch. It only fits one way with the key that's up there. The new parts going in. These have a mark. You could see the darker chain link right there and a darker chain link here, they will line up with these dots here and a dot right there. That will be tightened down, and then we'll put on our tensioner. All right, so with the timing chain, there are colored chain links that you need to line up with the intake and the exhaust cam gear. And this one down here will be to the gear on the crankshaft. So you line up the mark with the mark on the cam gear, and you do the same thing for the exhaust. When you take this off, it kind of pops out of spec, but so long as you line those up, when you go to tighten the chain, everything should move back to where it was. Double checking to make sure that the mark here lines up with a notch, the little arrow that's right there. You want to line up this colored gear link to that dot right there. And that should be where it needs to go. Once I put on the timing, the chain guides, it'll hold it in place. Use a zip tie to hold everything together so that it stops popping out of place for you while you finish bolting everything and getting all the timing correct. That'll hold it all in place so now the chain won't come off the teeth anymore. The chains are back in, the guides are back in. This little chain guide right down here that holds the chain, once you place that in, it stops the chain from coming off the sprocket. And then if you come up here, had used this zip tie to hold the belts together, the chain together, I'm sorry. Now that everything is in, everything is timed, I can go ahead and cut this off, and it'll give it a little slack, but the chain will not come off the sprocket down there. Okay, we're gonna RTV the timing chain cover. This is time sensitive, so I got about 4 minutes from the time I put this on to when I have to put it onto the engine. And you just want to run a good bead along the edges. Do not put any RTV around it. We're going back on. All right, this is the crank trigger plate. You want to make sure you reinstall this with the F facing you. If you don't do that, it will not run. Key that matches. Just like that. All right, we got the old valve cover gasket here that we will be replacing with the new one. Before you put the valve cover on, you want to put a little dot of RTV there, because these two lines will never match the top of the head and the valve cover, the timing chain cover. This one back here. The idler pulley back on, there's these two metal brackets that once you install it, it pulls it in tight, and on the reinstall, you gotta hammer it back just a tad bit for it to fit. See, with those mounting points pushed in, it slides in much easier. So we're gonna be installing the belt tensioner. goes onto this dowel that I have to remove. And we'll lower the vehicle and put this bolt up top. Reinstalling the crank angle sensor. Just snug it down. Next we'll be reinstalling the harmonic balancer. There's the key notch. Notches up top. Just wiggle it in. Make sure you torque this down to spec or else it will loosen. We've got our second engine mount. To line up this bolt here, it'll then line that one up and this one up here down. Make it easier for you to install. This is the crank angle sensor. Make sure you mount it up back to where it was. Next will be the alternator. Important ground wire, you got to make sure it goes back on. You may have some trouble starting if you do not have this on. Reinstalling the timing chain tensioner. Reinstalling the front and rear engine mount bolt. We'll be reinstalling the drive belt, and this is the pattern that it will be going in. Make sure we put oil back into the engine. We're reinstalling the radiator reservoir tank. Alright, we will be putting on the coil packs back on. Alright, we'll go for the first startup.